The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Well, welcome to Chic Chattin. I'm Karen Testerman, your host for the day. And today I am so honored to have with me Jerry LoFaro. And Jerry is an acquaintance I came across and found out that he has this passion for taking pictures. So Jerry, how did you get started with photography?
Well, that's an interesting question. I spent 30 years as a commercial illustrator, and I always took pictures. I've been taking pictures since high school, but never regarded myself as a photographer. It was always just for fun, with friends, or in the case of my illustration career, I was always photographing models or reference material as a means to what I was creating for illustration projects.
Now, your illustration, is that all by pencil or do you use different mediums?
Illustration, I actually started out as an airbrusher. And I'm formally known as a god of airbrushing in the illustration field. And so I was painting in acrylic paint and airbrush for many, many years. And then in 20 years ago, I got involved in digital art. So all the art I've created since then has been on a computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's different.
It was. It was quite a mountain to climb to learn it, because I was very involved and loved the process of painting. So I never thought that computer art would be for me. But I love it. It's actually expanded my world tremendously. That has gone forward with my photography as well.
Now, do you use a digital camera, or are you still using the old-fashioned film camera?
Nobody uses the old-fashioned anymore.
I know.
Yeah, I use. I've gone through a variety of digital cameras, and each one, just kind of helps me set the bar higher.
Right.
As I learn more about it and I get better. So to go back a little bit about the photography, where I was always doing it as a means to an end for my illustration projects. It wasn't until just a few years ago that I started taking it a little bit more seriously. I started to think about what I was doing photography-wise, and that sort of dovetailed with my going to concerts at the Tupelo Music Hall and taking photographs at concerts there. And that kind of led to interesting avenues where people were reacting to the concert photography I was doing. And then subsequently became the Tupelo Music Hall's official photographer. So it's been this interesting organic path to being a photographer, because it wasn't in my game plan to be a photographer, but it's actually exciting to see how it unraveled, simply because I was spending so much time observing the world around me, whether it be nature or it was the concerts, or in the case of why I'm here today with my book, is abandoned vehicles. It's just the beautiful thing about photography, because I come from a discipline as an illustrator that is incredibly time intensive. So I would work on a project and maybe it would take me a few days, or maybe it would take me a few weeks. So it was very laborious. Because the amount of detail I was putting into my illustrations. But the great thing about photography is that I get instant gratification, and with a quick 10 minutes editing in Photoshop, I feel like I can create a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I could even turn a lemon into lemonade. So
Right.
That's where photography has just really. Really made me more effervescent as an artist.
Yeah.
It's been
So
interesting.
have you ever taken anything, and I have a friend who's into photography, and she takes things and puts it into paintings. I mean, it looks literally like this is an oil painting, but it's actually a picture. It's just how it's been processed.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you would say that, because I come from a background of painting. So everything I do as a photographer is informed by 40 years of studying art and applying art and working with oils and acrylics and chalk and pencils. It all kind of brought me to this point. So what I lack in let's say, years of experience as a photographer and even technical expertise, I more than make up for because of my years as an artist.
Right.
I
Okay.
approach it as an artist.
Right.
And so I imbue when I edit, I imbue it with the soul of an artist.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me how you got your first car in the rust.
Well, it kind of started on my trips back and forth to New York, where I'm from, and I would always pass by there were these couple of beautifully posed wrecks outside of Northfield, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And they intrigued me, and I always noticed them. And then finally, one day, it's probably about 3 years ago now, maybe, I finally stopped and took pictures. And there was something magical about it, because the way the light was hitting it, and all of a sudden, there's nostalgia, there's texture, there's form, the backdrop of trees, they're set in nature, and then I was off to the races. I got hooked, and I would stop. Then I would stop every time, and then I started noticing others along the side of the roads, and I'd stop and take pictures.
I was going to ask you, how do you find these? Because are they really buried in somebody's backyard?
Well, I started with the easy ones that you could see from the side of the road, and I would stop. If it was on a property, I'd ask permission, and but then I started going deeper, and actually I went to some classic salvage yards. One in particular is Blanchard's in Wilton, that it's about 35 acres, dating back to the 40s.
Really?
Yeah. So I have a whole chapter on Blanchard's in the book there.
Where is that?
In Wilton.
Whereabouts in
Wilton,
Wilton?
New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's not on the main road. It's off in the back?
It's off the main road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wilton, Wilton does have a little...
car aficionados know it well.
Okay.
Because they go in there. I mean, it's kind of fascinating. People just kind of go and they wander through the woods, and they're looking for, a muffler from a 1955 Chevy. They might find it there, and they'll buy the piece. And that's, it's kind of like this interesting scavenging that goes on.
Yeah.
But the cars are poetically strewn across the acreage.
Oh, wow.
In the woods, in the fields, and I mean, I go there. I'll get lost for 5 or 6 hours. I mean, it's just amazing.
Get directions, because and maybe I'll give it to my husband for a birthday present or something like that, because he is. So when he was in college, in fact, when we were first dating, he had a 1942 Packard ambulance.
Oh, wow.
It was gold. And they had taken we grew up in California, so they'd taken the seats to be upholstered, but of course the cheapest place to go would be go down to Mexico. So they went across to Mexico, but it came back with lavender seat covers. but so he would be really fascinated with that. I'll have to find that information from you.
When you talk about something like that, that's been the evolving beauty of this subject. I started out from a point as an artist, where I was seeing the texture and the color and the light that would hit these, and the way that they would be poetically placed, with the trees as a backdrop. But it was in the process of finally doing the book and writing stories, and I should show this.
Yeah.
Abandoned Vehicles in New Hampshire, Rust and Peace. I would tell people what I'm doing, and then, someone would say, my father had this, or my grandfather had that, or my first date was in this. So a car is a universal symbol of history and love and memories, nostalgia. Everything that was good about America. Through the evolution of the car in the early part of the century.
Yeah.
It just I remember watching the Three Stooges and the Little Rascals. And seeing all those old cars, and they were just, incredibly fascinating.
Right.
And, now I find them out in the woods, a lot of those same cars.
Yeah.
So for me, it's an interesting journey.
And so tell me, how did this book evolve?
I was taking more and more pictures, and, and I was doing it for fun.
Uh-huh.
But in the back of my mind, it's like, well, I think I have something here. I have a book in me. And I got a lot of things in me. I got a lot of projects.
I hear you.
I'm a creative guy, so my wheels are always turning with all the possibilities. But of course, you can only do so many things. So I had the abstract idea that I have a book in me. I'm going to do a book. It's going to be a great book. But when am I going to do it? I don't know. It's just like another one of those pipe dreams.
Right.
But again, now that we're connected internationally through social media, and I had just really joined Instagram.
Okay.
I'm very active on Facebook, and I post a lot of photographs on Facebook, and have a lot of followers with my photography. But I had only been on Instagram about, I don't know, maybe a month or two, and I dived in. I opened 4 accounts. So, okay, let me say, follow me on Instagram, because there's a lot of fun stuff going on. I've got Jerry LoFaro Art, Jerry LoFaro Music with all my concert photography. I got my Jerry LoFaro Photography for my general photography, and then I have Jerry LoFaro Rust. So I had about 50 followers on Jerry LoFaro Rust, but one of them turned out to be a publisher out of Britain. Called Fonhill Media. And they sent me a message and asked if I'd be interested in submitting a proposal for a book. And when I realized it was actually legit, I said, oh. And they had a series called America Through Time. And, of course, it was dovetailing with kind of what I was doing.
Right, right.
And so I put in a proposal for the cars. And I said, the great thing about it is, and this is for a lot of photographers, and I've actually been advising a lot of photographers at a meeting, because there's so many people, we're inundated with photographs.
Right.
But what do you do with those photos?
Right, exactly.
They're great on social media, but when you have
a lot
the
of them are
opportunity,
sitting on the middle of my phone.
yeah, of course, millions on the phone.
Right.
But when you have the opportunity, as I was presented with, it galvanized me to think more about what I was photographing, how I would present it to the world, how I would write stories. So it condensed everything I was thinking, I was doing for fun, into a really good focus, and it's a great experience. It's a lot of work. I spent well over a year. It's a really fun book. I think it's got something in it for everyone.
So do you tell stories in there? Did you interview the owners of some of these cars to get some of the background, or did the car actually tell you the story?
There's a little bit of everything, and I've got some great stories, because for every abandoned car there is a story. Whether we actually know it or we can imagine what happened to it. But in a few cases, I was actually able to find the backstory.
Okay.
That was really fascinating. And this is all through the efforts of reaching out to people. And like I would ask, hey, do you know anybody that's got old cars on their property? So this is how it went from just seeing things on the roadside, to going to the junkyards.
Right.
To going even deeper.
Right.
And I even talk about in the book that I got so involved that I would actually go on scavenger hunts on Google Earth.
Okay.
And I would kind of scan tracts of land,
neat.
and and I could sort of, I was like, well, yeah, that looks like it could be a rusty car or a truck. And I'd sort of pinpoint the area. I went on a few wild goose chases, but I actually found some stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's really cool. There are so many tendrils because all of a sudden, you're in the thrill of the hunt. It's like, I'm getting out in nature and I have a goal today, but it's beautiful and there are clouds over there, and I'm shooting this, I'm shooting that. So maybe I'll find the car, maybe I don't. But if I find the car and it's in this setting and I'm like, maybe I'm the only one that knows now where this car is. There's a romantic journey involved,
Right.
and that, again, my whole knowledge of art history and my whole artistic background really feeds this new passion of mine.
No, it's interesting because, so our family, it's really funny. Our oldest boy was graduating from high school, and he wanted a car to go off to college. And so there was, we're a military family. There's not a lot of extra money going around and so forth. And he comes home from high school one day and he says, "Dad, I found this really cool car. It's a '59 Ford." And he says, I looked in the window, there's only 3,000 miles on it.
Oh, wow.
And David says, yeah, right. It's 103 or 203, but it's not this 3,000 miles on it. And so they investigated. It turned out it really was 3,000 miles because it was Grandma's car that she had bequeathed to her grandson. He was getting ready to go off to college. He wanted to unload it. And so when they looked in the back, it had its original tires.
Wow.
So this car now is that '59 stock car. It's so funny because we now, the kids will be doing something on Instagram or whatever, and they'll send a note out. "Hey, did you see the car in West Side Story with Officer Krupke? He's the police officer."
Yeah.
Well, my son is also a police officer, so it's
that's
kind
neat.
of funny because we keep coming across this '59 Ford, this stock '59 Ford in the movies. I think it's the same car. I think it's really just the same one that they keep using as a prop for various things. But
that's a great story.
yeah. And as a result, it set a precedence in our family. So if you're getting ready to graduate from school and you want a car, you can have one about the same price that we paid for that '59 Ford.
Perfect.
So anyway, so tell us one of the stories about one of the cars that you really...
I'm glad you asked.
What's your favorite one?
Well, first of all, I get the opportunity to write a book, and it's like, I got all the pictures. It's like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Okay, now I got to write a book. It's fun taking the pictures, but now I got to formulate something. So it's like the first thing I decided, really, as I was procrastinating and wondering how to move forward, was okay, because you mentioned your grandson, so that reminded me. I said, I'm going to dedicate the book to my grandson, Hudson. His name is Hudson.
Oh.
Coincidentally,
There's a car.
he's coincidentally named for a car, a classic car, a Hudson. So that helped me as I approached the book, because okay, well, I'm dedicating the book to Hudson. And there he is, right there in the front.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I'm dedicating the book to Hudson. Now I got to find a Hudson photograph. And that started a fun journey. And I did find an amazing Hudson photograph. And so much so that I ended up dedicating an entire chapter to this one car, because it was all by itself in a field. It was really beautiful.
Oh, cool.
It was
Yeah.
poetic. It was really fascinating. And the story started evolving. And one thing I found out was that it actually was used in a horror movie, an independent horror movie. So I was able to include not only the story about that in here, but I also got the director of the movie to contribute a caption and a little something about it.
So this is in New Hampshire. This Hudson is in New Hampshire. It was used in a film that was in New Hampshire?
Yes, I found it at Lane's Garage out in Loudon.
Okay.
And I've since become really good friends with Ronnie Lane, the owner. But the story continues past this book, because I got so attached to that Hudson that when I finished this book, I said, I have to own that car.
Okay.
And so finally I said to Ronnie, I said, Ronnie, are you attached to any of the cars you have out on your property? He says, not one of them. He says, do you think I could buy the Hudson? He says, you should have that car. And so in November, he gave it to me for almost nothing, and hired a tow
Right.
truck to pick it up and bring it out, and it now sits in front of my art studio
Oh, how
in
cool.
Henniker.
Right.
And I continue to photograph it almost every day, because now I situate it in such a way that we let the field grow wild around it. We planted wildflowers. It's backed by rhododendrons and other plants, big stately trees. Then my studio. So I like to think it's in its final resting place, but the story continues, and I believe I have the basis of yet another book just on that car.
Just on Hudson. So now, does grandson Hudson come over and
Oh yeah, absolutely.
enjoy that car?
Yeah.
What does he like to do most with it?
Well, I tried to get him to go in, but it was too scary. He said no, but he'll stand on top. So the game plan is I'll take a picture of him every year on his birthday in front of the Hudson.
Okay.
And
how old is he now?
he's 3.5.
3.5. Oh,
Yeah.
he's got a long way.
He's got a
to go.
ways to go.
Yeah, at
But
some point, yeah.
I actually, I think the book is worth, just for the last page, when I tie everything together, because I brought Hudson out to that car when he was not yet 2 years old.
Okay.
And I write about that experience, which was actually really fun and funny and not as expected. So yeah, if you like cars and you like stories about kids, you'll love my story about Hudson.
Yeah, yeah. So I just am totally fascinated that you found this way to go out and find all these old cars.
Yeah.
Are you exploring any other, because you said you have more than one book in your head.
Oh,
right.
yes.
So are you exploring other areas?
I am. First of all, as we were talking a little bit before, I'm starting to go to classic car shows.
Okay.
And actually, I've been hired to shoot people's restored cars. And I love that. That's really fun. To go out and go to different locations and photograph the cars. And and because what I can do artistically really sets me apart from other photographers.
Right.
In my approach and the final product. And so I think I have a good book in me coming with just restored cars of New Hampshire. There's so much in New Hampshire.
It's amazing because when we lived in Mount Vernon, it was around the corner from us was a fellow who was well known for his restorative work on cars, classic cars, and he would actually take people, if the part was no longer available, he would actually create the part and make it,
Yeah, nice.
So, but Hemmings is where in Vermont.
Yes.
It's right around the corner as well, and so there is. And it's funny because all of a sudden, when the weather starts to turn nice, you see all of these wonderful cars come out. So I'm sure the classic cars will be a lot of fun.
I also should mention, when we're talking about books, my next contracted book is actually about the town of Henniker.
Okay.
I was asked to submit a proposal for a new series called, I forgot. That's about locations in America,
Right.
Small size cities and towns, and I've been photographing around Henniker for years. And I'm going to have a chapter on wildlife. I'm going to have a chapter on the bridges and the river. It's all really beautiful.
Oh, neat.
But the funny thing that happened since this book came out, and I sort of thought it would happen actually, but not to the level it has, is that I figured people would start to let me know that they have cars that I should go check out. But I've actually been inundated. I've been inundated with so many locations that I have a huge file on my computer now of places I have to get to when I get the chance.
Oh, you've
really
got to
cool,
go on. Yeah.
like buried in the woods and this and that. I even got an invitation from a private a collector in Maine who's got over 400 rusty cars on his property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So would you go out in the wintertime?
It's fun going out in winter. I love going out in the rain.
Okay.
I go out in the rain because, again, what I'm able to do with, even though it's dark and dreary, what I can do in editing and with the cars, the combination of wet paint and rust and lichens and moss are absolutely out of this world.
Right.
And so I'll go out in the rain at any chance to photograph the cars. It's really like night and day. It's a whole new world.
Yeah.
And to go back to Henniker, I've actually discovered so many cars like within 5 minutes of me in Henniker since this book came out. And people have told me about that I'm going to do a chapter in the Henniker book, Abandoned Vehicles of Henniker.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just awesome.
It's really pretty neat.
So how do people get in touch with you?
I can be, the book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all bookstores, but signed copies can be ordered directly from me. And if you contact me at jerrylofarorust@gmail.com, we'll be sure to get you a signed copy and a special custom bookmark that I'm going to leave as a surprise right now.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm also in the process of launching a fine art print shop online. It'll be all the different things I've been photographing, but there'll be an emphasis on the cars that
Do you
I've
have a
been doing.
website?
Right, I'm still building the website.
Okay.
It'll be Jerry LoFaro Photography. You'll be able to find me. My art website is still active, and that's jerrylofarodesigns.com.
Okay.
And as I said, on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook. You can't get away from me, actually.
Well, now that we've discovered you, I'm
Yeah.
so delighted that you
Yeah.
came and joined
Well,
me.
I really appreciate you asking me on. This has been fun.
Great. And so if anybody wants to get in touch with you, it's Jerry LoFaro.
jerrylofarorust@gmail.com.
jerrylofarorust@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can get a hold of the I Choose to Live Free book with the state constitution and the U.S. Constitution and so forth in it by going to karentesterman.com. And I really appreciate all of you for tuning in to Chic Chattin. And remember that you can be involved. You're not alone out there, and there's something special for you to do. So be sure that you get involved and figure out what it is. Thanks for joining me.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.